pragmatically and then move them in a humane way. If we took the option of now putting armed police there and start beating up people, it will not work. So, yes, there could be days when traders show up, we engage them, you'll find 2 days where it is clean. Eventually, it has to settle. More markets. Right now, the discussion with them is about Mwariro. Yeah. It is, but practically, when you're actually in there, it doesn't work.
We started off very well. It's like a visit to the doctors, and you need to be very clear about your symptoms so that we know what you're suffering from and prescribe the proper medicine. But now if you start to confuse us on the actual state of affairs in some of these areas, we don't know how to help. Are you sure that none of the people who was relocated from Wakulima is back there? You are saying those are new people.
I can say that very confidently. I can say that quite confidently. Yeah. Because you see, even the vehicles have registration numbers.
It's not the vehicles. The overriding, and I even supported you on that. We don't want what happened in Londiani to happen at Wakulima. They're on the road even if we left this room and went there with you now. But you cannot say they are new people. I know some of those traders.
They'll convince them to go. If you know, they help us. Let's work together.
On the day I sit there, Governor, I will have the persuasive powers to move them. But you cannot ascribe. You cannot ascribe work that has been assigned to you constitutionally to your senator.
Let me bring this to this session to a close so that we move to the next one.
Yeah.
But it is our view that just by looking at financial statements is not sufficient oversight over Nairobi.
Yes.
And just as the way we are saying we need to have different arrangements for cities in everything. We cannot take the approach I take for oversight of Homa Bay cannot be the same approach I take for Nairobi. And so that's why all these comments coming from senators, they are extremely valid and they are within the mandate of this committee. And members, I think Nairobi being just a stone throw away, in the next session, we probably need to be more on the ground. Because instead of talking about Wakulima in a boardroom, all we need to do is to go there. Instead of talking about the rivers, all we need is to go there.
Chair, I have a personal frustration in this committee where I feel that Nairobi doesn't appear as often as other governors. I've seen some governors here more than enough times. And the reason why all these issues build up is because I don't feel like we have enough sessions with Nairobi. So even from your chair, I think you need to give us more time with the Nairobi County government. And lastly, just because he has brought up markets, there was an issue, Governor, we raised with you about Kahawa West Market, where your people allowed stalls to be built outside the gate of the market. And you had given us an assurance that those stalls will be removed. Have those stalls been removed?
No. And they won't be removed, Senator. What we found when we looked into it, there have been extensive public participation with the people of the market. And there's new construction going on. What they've agreed to do is to do differentiation of what is sold at the stalls, so that you don't have the same product in the market being sold outside the store. And I'll be very happy to furnish you with the public participation report there. I understand, I know you went there, I know the issues I know the chair of that market and the MCA and whatnot, but they'd actually done that participation, because I looked into it. I really, just like every other ward, it's a ward very close to my heart, and I've looked into it. Pragmatically, we don't have enough trading spaces for all our people. Even with the new construction, which is going on right now, if you go to see, that even won't be enough. So long as there's differentiation, because you don't want people selling outside the market what is inside the market. None will go inside the market, and so you'll kill your own market where you're putting money to. So work with me to make sure that we do that differentiation properly. So
I'll be happy to see the report. If you are telling me that the traders inside agreed to that, I'll be happy to see that report.
Well, we will share that.
Yeah, I think Nairobi is a complex organization. You are thinking about hawkers, you're thinking about markets, you're thinking about green bonds, you're thinking about BRT, no matter water. So you went for the job, you left us here in Parliament. We will put you under pressure to perform.
I work best like that. And Chair, I think the Senator of Nairobi is correct, and yourself. A lot of the things, you've asked which of these projects will you do, which ones can you do. When we go together to a house in Ngando that has never received water, and you open the tap, that is audit. If we go together to better than the documents, if we go out there to see what this revenue we're raising and that we've increased is doing on the ground. So I'm very happy and open to that. When you go to Pumwani and see the first ICU there, Mama Lucy, see the leak at Magathi, see what is happening in Mutwini, where for the first time people are being referred from private facilities to a public facility because of the machinery. And one of the questions actually Senator Sifuna, when visited us to the health committee, said there's no X-ray. And I put that CEO to task because what he had been telling you could possibly was not reflective. Today, go there. It is amazing. So oversight builds institutions. And I am a believer in oversight. I've been a senator longer than I've been a governor. So Chair, I'm very open to that. I think finally on the questions that had been
that's a final response. Then we go to the report.
Finally, on the questions that have been asked, 2021, which is when NMS just took over, was 10. 21-22 was 8.9. Then when we came, 10.5 billion, which was the second highest in the history of devolution in Nairobi, because the other higher one was 2015-16 when we did regularization, was 10.5, and the last one is 12.8 billion, which in the last few days we were targeting 13 billion, but the last few days, you remember, that was June, and you know what was happening towards the end of June. With a lot of the protests within the city, we had a sharp decline in our revenue collection due to the protests at that time. The potential of Nairobi is extremely high. And I'll give you an example. And I need your help as a Senate.
What's the figure for the potential?
For 67 billion. Yeah, that is according to World Bank, to the CRA. We talk about 67. I think
so this is just about 25% of that potential.
And I think it is much higher. The target we put, for instance, annually is our own target. When you say we want to do 20 billion, we believe that with measures and everything held constant, we can get to 20 billion. And I'll give you an example without specifying the current transaction. It might jeopardize it. One of the regularizations we're currently doing in Nairobi, part of Eastlands, just one scheme with 20,000 settlers is going to give us 7 billion at a go in the next few days if we conclude. Right now they're conducting an aerial survey. People had settled in. It was privately owned. They've built buildings without approvals of the county government. We've said for each and every approved subdivision, because we have to approve the subdivision.
So that's a windfall, because you won't get it in the subsequent year.
Yeah, but that's what happened in 15-16. So that's a windfall, and that's one scheme. We've not looked at, there's so many schemes. There's Kiamu Dandora, there's Embakasi Ranching, there's the whole of pipeline. And so currently, we have two options. We have the regularization bill in the County Assembly of Nairobi, but we also have PLUPA, the Physical Land Use Planning Act, on which we can do that regularization of unauthorized developments. That alone can give us extra from the 12.8 billion, another extra 20-30 billion. Support we need from you. The biggest revenue stream in any city is property taxes. Yeah, globally. Even in Nairobi, it's land rates. I'm happy with my team that we were able first to move to a recent valuation role. Every other part of the country is stuck in 1980s valuation role. We are at 2019 valuation role, but it's 0.015% of the value. which is okay, because you don't want to shock people with 3 times or 4 times what they've been paying. Meaning, even for those who, what they need to pay today is more than twice, they can only pay twice. If it's more than 100% of what you're paying. We've allowed them to pay in installments. So you can pay monthly for 10 months, leaving 2 months for enforcement action by us. But here's a challenge, Chair. 2 things. One, in our records, we have 175,000 parcels with attributes. This means it's 175,000 billable properties. And we have around 50,000 accounts on Nairobi Pay. The 50,000 accounts do not cover the 175,000 parcels. The Ministry of Lands has 255,000 parcels in their records for Nairobi with attributes. We have been working to get this data, but it's been almost elusive to get it. Because what we want is to be able to know who to bill and then who to enforce on. If we just do that fast, even with the current rate, we do that fast with the current rates, then what we get from property taxes is going to more than double, because you're talking about 50,000 accounts. Very few people have more than 1 parcel, you know.
Chair, just so that we help the governor. Governor, the CS of Lands has been so far very cooperative on matters that we have raised, especially affecting land grabbing in Nairobi, starting with Tomboya Social Hall and the others. So that is something we can do for you as a Senate. Bring that request through your senator. We will be able to get that information for you.
Thank you, Senator. Governor, I think we need to stop there and come back to this report, because even some of those figures have a bearing on the receiver of revenue. In fact, I was just looking at the top page of this report, where the Auditor General talks of your collection of 450 million from property rent. I think it's quite inverted. Ideally, property rent, as you said, in a city should be higher than land rates. That's what you're saying.
No, when I say property taxes, I mean land rates. Property rent is our houses. So those who are in Kanzo flats, in Eastlands, in Woodley, that is what we call it.
That's a 450 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just come back to the systems environment. For avoidance of doubt, and Governor, as you said that the ongoing audit, you are afraid that the past transgressions might discolor your current report. We must make it clear that if there are transgressions in the past, the persons responsible must also be held to account. There is need to look at the current situation, but that does not mean running away from responsibility on the past issues. Whoever was a receiver of revenue, whoever was in charge of revenue during those past periods, if there are unresolved matters, the position of the committee is that they also must be held to account. So can we do a quick review of the systems environment, and we'll go to your report. I think it didn't have a header, it didn't have a date, it didn't have a signature. And so, Governor, when you said they were waiting for your signature, I wonder where that signature was amended.
The signature is on the cover, as is on the cover letter.
So
these are annexures.
So let's go to the supplementary questions that the Senate had asked. With regards to governance structures for revenue management in the county, the first question was, what is the organization structure for the Revenue Board? Governor, what's your response?
Thank you, Chair. The Nairobi City County Assembly enacted the Nairobi City County Revenue Administration Act of 2021. This establishes a legal and institutional framework and establishes what we call the NRA, the Nairobi City County Revenue Authority. Chair, this act had not been implemented from 2021. When I became the governor of Nairobi, I moved quickly to implement this act by setting up the Revenue Authority, which is headquartered at CBK Pension Towers. We have a fully fledged board chaired by one Andrew Chege, who is an expert in taxation, has worked at KRA for a long time. He is part of those who innovated iTax and other innovations on technology. It has a full board which represents different parts of society, including residents, including business community, The vice chair is in the Chamber of Commerce. So we have the organizational structure that I have attached. We have the interim CEO, Dr. Ntoiti, who is here with us. He's the interim CEO of the Nairobi Revenue Authority. He's been the CEO of Meru Revenue Authority. But before that, he was a player we loaned to Meru. He used to be in Nairobi. But because he comes from there and the governor then wanted homegrown talent, he was on loan for a few years and came back. But he's a great expert in revenue.
Why is he still interim?
He was interim there in Meru.
No, he introduced himself as interim.
He's Director of Revenue in Nairobi County Government, but interim CEO at the Revenue Authority. The board is undertaking recruitment for substantive CEO. And so we've seconded him to the authority, while just to help them, get the administration moving. But the board, according to the Revenue Act, the Revenue Administration Act, are the ones to recruit. Currently, there's a tender. If you look at the public procurement portal, tender 148, on request for proposal of recruitment consultancy services for position of Chief Executive Officer, Revenue Administration for Nairobi Revenue Authority. That one is currently on the portal. We can share the reference for that, Chair.
So that's still live?
It is live as we speak.
Okay, we proceed then to the number of employees deployed in revenue collection.
So currently there's 1,298 staff who are deployed for revenue collection. The staff, the list of all of them, their IPPD numbers and their workstations are attached. Chair, there are different departments there. We have those who do revenue from building plans. We have those who do sundry debtors. There are those who do rental and markets. These are the markets which are on the TPS scheme, tenant purchase scheme. We have public health revenue, which is quite substantive. Advertisement revenue, building materials unit, city funeral homes. We have now revenue officers in all our hospitals, and proper, finance structure. You remember there had been an issue in auditing of level 5, level 4 hospitals, which are led now by CEOs, which was also an intervention we brought in. We have the DCU, which is the enforcement unit. We have rates, and part of what we want to do in enhancing revenue is actually making rates a fully fledged department, property tax, as is the case. We've benchmarked cities across the world. You have it fully fledged. You have what we call tax bargaining, so that you can actually establish the correct value of taxation to be paid. So, Chair, that is the structure.
How does automation affect the numbers? Do you expect that with great automation the numbers will reduce? Just this morning I was driving through the city and I saw parking revenue officers, and there are quite many wearing those jackets, saying corruption is evil.
It is evil.
I thought you should say it is illegal, because not everyone believes in your faith.
No, but there are very few legal.
Evil is a matter of faith. So should we expect the numbers to reduce as a result of automation? Because this is a huge army.
It is a huge army. Remember, this is a city of 5 million people. There's only 1,200. Even with automation, a system is as good as what you feed it. And so you need people querying physically, querying the payments done. And sometimes I'm sure you see some of the mistakes done when you get an SMS saying you parked in town and your vehicle has been in the garage. And normally that's a human error. They'll put your vehicle KAD and mess one number. And so we keep trying to improve that, either through taking a photo of the number plate instead of keying in the numbers. Some people have these fancy plates where, the B looks like an E, and we are working with NTSA to make sure let it be standard, so that we can be able to capture it properly. So,
do these people have the right job title? If we have an automated revenue collection system, that work that you're describing is not revenue collection, is it?
In terms of?
And that is why the chair was saying, because we have gone through the discussion about our wage bill, where our entire equitable share is consumed by wage bill. So how can automation not result in a reduction of the wage bill? And that job that you're describing, really, is that a proper name for the work that these people do?
The job of parking attendants?
No, you're calling them revenue collectors. staff deployed for revenue collection?
Chair, some of these terms are statutory terms. PFM 158 determines that there must be revenue collectors. Yeah, so that is under PFM, but the specific designation of which revenue they collect then depends on the revenue stream. But the PFM stipulates that we must actually have them as revenue collectors who report.
So back to the question that the chair raised, how can automation not have any impact on our wage bill?
It has an impact, but you see what you do is that you then redeploy, because you will not fire PNP people because you've gotten a revenue solution. You actually retrain them and use them until their time goes. What you reduce is new employment. People have worked in City Hall for years, they're about to retire or they're in their 40s. Because of technology, let's not have the situation in the tea farms. Senator Terergay will remind you of a visit we did when I was chair of Labour and he was a ranking member. And we went to James Finlay. And they're saying these machines are getting us out of work. We have a big unemployment problem. And so while we might reduce the employment, we cannot fire people because of user technology. Because once that thought comes out, they will sabotage the technology that is currently being deployed. And so it is really retraining them to make the systems more efficient, Chair.
It will then be a point of convergence that these are not revenue collection officers. They no longer do that work.
They help revenue collection by verifying that you've paid the revenue. They don't receive cash. Actually, we've closed our cash office. There's no cash office in Nairobi County because everything is electronic. And we want to continue doing a campaign, which I'm sure you'll help us as a senator, to sensitize people across the city. If anyone asks you for cash, it is them you're paying, not the county government. And part of it, actually, if I may, has made us reduce some charges. I'll give you an example. There are trailers, the fee for trailers parking in Russell area was 3,000 shillings. But the bribe was 1,000. And so we said, let's make the fee 1,000. So it was reduced. We're collecting more now with a lower amount because now, if the bribe is the same as you'd rather just pay, instead of going through those. So we've actually reduced some of those rates, but widened compliance and we're collecting more through that, Chair.
Okay, we'll then maybe when you're doing your audit also, maybe look at how these numbers have been growing. Because you have 1298. Has that been the number over the years? Is it increasing? Are you recruiting more? Are you still putting more money on automation?
We can look at that. Currently, we've just shortlisted 43 revenue clerks. The 43 had been at our customer service center, which I would really invite you to come visit, at City Hall Annex on the first floor. There had been, not 43, 40. There had been casuals for a long time, young people who really helped us revamp, build this revenue, and we felt that it's good to confirm them. So that's the only recruitment, apart from the CEO and the top directors of the Revenue Authority. And then now the discussion is going on who within the current establishment of the county government then transitions to the Revenue Authority. It's a very sensitive discussion because there's some things you want to replicate, there's some things you don't want to transfer to a new institution. And so that is an ongoing discussion. Chair, I'm very alive to labor issues. I've been chair of labor and I'm also chair of labor at the COG. And so you must be alive to contractual obligations that you currently have with the staff.
Yeah, and I think we also need to urge a human face to revenue collection.
Yes.
I visited a flower, these roadside operations where they sell potted plants. And the lady there expressed her frustration. There's an army of KRA people. I think that was when KRA had hired some people to move around premises to ask all sorts of funny questions. This lady tells me that the KRA people would come in the morning, the Kanjo guys would come in the afternoon. There would be fees paid through the system, but there is an informal mafia going around. There are fees that are collected by those persons. And that's why when you talk of the 1,298, some of them could be industrious citizens, but some of them are rent seekers, frustrating small and medium enterprises. I think the lady was telling me that she would part with 500 for KRA, another 500 for Kanjo, and she's just selling flowers. One bougainvillea, perhaps, she sells at 50 shillings. By the time she sells enough to make 1,000, it means that she has had to sell almost 50 seedlings. You can clearly see, to have 50 seedlings is a lot of money, is a lot of effort, but then it's taken away by those who purport to be collecting tax. And they are not getting any service in return anyway, because they draw water from the nearby stream. They are not even using Kanjo water to water the plants. And I think that's a conversation, that's a concern that many Nairobians doing those small businesses have. Salons, liquor shops, florists, or those roadside operations. Let's put a human face to revenue collection.
Chair, I'm in full agreement with you. Of course, on a light note, if you see KRA is taking the same amount, possibly that should be the share of revenue also. We should do 50-50. But seriously, it is the reason why we even published in the newspapers who the inspection officers are. Before, what you'd have, and we're really moving away from it. In the morning, somebody will come to look at your single business permit. In the afternoon, someone comes from City Hall saying, I'm looking at fire. Tomorrow, somebody comes, pest control. The next day, somebody else comes on advertising. And we said that there's only going to be one inspection team. What we've now moved to, as we finish our biometric exercise, which is speaking to our wage bill, is that then we will deploy what we deployed in Nairobi Water. In Nairobi Water, we've deployed something called Chitambulishe. Well, if somebody comes to your house purporting to read the meter or to be an officer, you can actually use an USSD code, type it out, and they'll tell you if Edwin Sifuna is a meter reader or not. And you can even go further and press a link and see their photo. Because somebody can come with your ID, knowing that Peter Karande is a meter officer. So we're doing that as well. So one inspection team that has all the cadres published, you can tell that, and the numbers look many, but they're not. Remember, we have 85 wards. If you look at Kamkunji Sub-County Revenue Officers, for instance, Isili North, there are 14 officers. You know the number of businesses in Isili, and business premises. 14 officers is not an overkill. 14 officers are sufficient, because what we tell them is our approach towards revenue is not punishment but compliance. And so they come, they look at your license, and they tell you, look, this license actually is not genuine. There's an e-verify sticker, yeah, with a QR code. And then they walk you through with our compliance application how to get the proper license. And that is why today, if you look at the city court, the numbers are much less than used to be. City court used to be like remand of industrial area. Of course, it is not perfect. We're continuously improving it, because you'll find one or two rotten eggs, and that's why we want to deploy a system where Nairobians can actually tell us.
That's what I wanted to go to, Governor.
Yeah.
In other jurisdictions, we have departments of internal affairs,
yes,
where members of the public can report this thing. And it is sometimes the situation on ground, as they say, is totally different. The sort of friendliness that is required from those officers for you to even check their identification is sometimes not always there.
Yeah.
And it is very easy to theorize and say you can ask them, like the way they tell Kenyans, you can ask a police officer to show you his identification or force number. But for ground, by the time you are checking, you are in the back of that.
Mariam.
Yes, you said you cleared all the old ones. Now we have new prison buses.
Mm. Chair, the Nairobian of today is defiant in a positive way. They don't take. I love how you see Nairobians recording people doing the wrong thing. And you see, as we develop this, I would want Nairobians to be able to show us that officer. There are many masquerading as our county officers, and that's why I want my officers to be fully, recognizable and identifiable, so that if you have a record on video, there's something I'm working on in our finance bill, in our finance act, which turns all Nairobians into inspectors. So any Nairobian can actually record an intervention of the law and help us even verify. If you find this one is fake and you report it, split the fine with them. That if you're to pay 10,000 for the license and the fine is 5,000, take 2,500 and give us 2,500. It's something we're working on. Because compliance is for the benefit of all of us. If people are jumping traffic lights, the inconvenience is not to the governor. It is to you in traffic. You should be able to also record and help us snap that person. So, culture change, organizational change in terms of values is a process. It doesn't happen in a day or in a year. But many will tell you that the officers have become a bit friendlier. And those rogue ones, I want to know them because they're giving us a bad face. They don't look like what we want to give Nairobians. Our second principle is dignity. Chair.
Yeah, I think as Senator Sifuna says, on the ground things are different. So those were the governance arrangements. We have seen the appointment letters for the receiver of revenue and the list of the revenue collectors. The second supplementary question was on the information systems used in revenue collection. Now, you listed in the responses before us, life forms, which you have indicated is no longer in use. You listed the second system after life forms was Jumbo Pay. Is Jumbo Pay still in use?
No.
The third system you listed was Revenue Sure. Is Revenue Sure still in use?
No.
And then the fourth system you listed was Nairobi Pay system. Is Nairobi Pay system in use?
Yes.
So that's the current system that is utilized.
Yep.
Is it only one or there are other systems beyond the Nairobi Pay system?
The system in use today is Nairobi Pay. Nairobi Pay system has different modules.
So, honorable members, because the Auditor General will be employing the services of a systems auditor.
Yes.
And one of the substantive issues that was raised in the audit report was that multiplicity of systems and the lack of interfaces or proper migration in between the systems that the Auditor General can handle. Mark?
Yes, Chair. We have a specialized department that deals with the information systems audit. Thank you, Chair.
So if that is the case, could we focus, just go through the system currently in use,
yes,
so that the Auditor General can then interrogate the other aspects of data migration, other aspects of integrity of systems, other aspects of integrity of data in those systems, so that we deal with the system that is currently in use in Nairobi. If that is a consensus, then let's look at your responses on Nairobi Pay system. Who is the developer of this system? Governor?
Thank you. The responses are as I've given. The developer of the system, or rather the system vendor, is the national government through the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy.
Under what framework was this done? Because we know that the National Treasury has been struggling to come up with an integrated county revenue management system. And so why would the National Treasury be pursuing that? And yet the Ministry of ICT has already developed something that is in use in Nairobi.
Chair, I will not be able to answer for the Treasury, but what I can do is give you the background of this system. Chair, you remember in 2019-2020, Nairobi County Government, then through its CEC of Finance, appointed KRA as an agent to collect revenue for them. KRA, of course, took it up with much alacrity. However, they realized they have no system because they could not deploy ITAX or the systems that they have. And so they engaged the national government through a multi-agency team, of course spearheaded by ICTA and the Ministry of ICT, to develop a system. They had what they called JNAM, the Joint National Mapping. They did a lot of GIS work. They did work on Lands Ministry. They did RDSASA. They did many of those components, including a revenue system for Nairobi. Chair, when we got into office, we found a system operating with the developers. And unlike what happens in many cases, I'm sure you've seen cases where every governor comes and sets up their own system, or they look for a vendor, a private sector vendor who can, provide a system for whichever reasons. Chair, we said, if it's not broken, don't fix it, let's make it better. And so we adopted the system, but we said, number one, the capacity must be within the county government. We must host the system, and we must be able to give full instructions that we no longer have an agent collecting on our behalf. We are collecting it with our staff. for transition and for ease of, because revenue is two things, Chair. Revenue collection is systems and operations. Systems include technology and devices, and gadgets, what you use to query the vehicles. It includes interconnections between NTSA to tell us the number plate, KRA to tell us the PIN, all of that. That is the system work. Operations are the cadences you set, that every morning at this time, officers will go to this road, query vehicles, land people will go to this estate, look at LR numbers, etc. And so I wrote to the Ministry of Finance, directly to KRA, asking for the secondment of 9 officers who had been process champions in the revenue streams to come and shepherd that transition back into the city. If you did a hard stop completely, we would have lost a lot of time and money. And that is what possibly allowed us to continue growing our revenues. So what we're currently doing, Chair, because it is the architecture of the system is software as a service. I'm the one actually who came up with the name Nairobi Pay and Nairobi Plan. It was more or less nameless. I think they call it Taifa Pay at some point. There was no brand. And when you're selling a solution to the public, you need to brand it. The user interface must be easy. If you dial now *647# on your phone, you should be able to see step by step, create an account, put your ID, what do you want to pay, is it land rate, is it parking, etc. So the user interface, for the friendliness of it, we call it Nairobi Pay. So that is...
What was the effective date for this system?
Effective date in terms of?
When did you start using it? Like, when did you migrate to it?
That must have been 2020, actually. Let my Chief Officer Revenue just check.
Yeah, and Governor...
He was also Chief Officer Smart Nairobi, so he's also in the ICT space.
Chair, the question you're asking is best answered by a document, Governor. There has to be a document that speaks to the framework.
There's a document, Appendix 2, 4C.
What is that document?
It's a memorandum of agreement between the city county government, NMS and KRA into the integrated management system for Nairobi.
The one that was signed by Ann Kananu on 15th November 2021.
Yes. And beyond that, there's that's the document. And the different articles talk about the scope, the adoption of one system, Nairobi revenue system, talks about how to roll it out, data migration and reconstruction, system training for users, stakeholder engagement, dispute resolution. Signed by Her Excellency Ann Kananu Mwenda, Acting Governor at that time, Mohamed Badi, Lieutenant General, NMS, and the Commissioner General of KRA, Githim Buru.
So, Governor, the last time we were here, there were conversation about the ownership of this system, and I think your answer then was that it is fully owned by the county government.
Yes, at that time the discussions were, but it's our system. We own it, that's why we're not paying anyone for it. We're not paying any commission, any development fee, because the thinking at that point was, government is government, so let's support the county of Nairobi, and that is why I answered as much, in as much as the support framework and the memorandum had been between those 3 entities. You realize one of the entities it does not exist anymore, which is the NMS. It is just us and KRA no longer collect for us. Part of what we've been migrating actually has been accounts which have the KRA title in terms of the collection accounts.
So, Governor, this is a very interesting agreement because it doesn't specify the duties, responsibilities, rights of any of the parties there. Why are these parties, why was this agreement even necessary? Because it doesn't speak to any of the duties, responsibilities. Is it the whole thing? Because I can see only 3 pages.
And that's the 2021 agreement. You remember that all of us were against this. Because against this at that time, you know, when I was in the Senate. Because of those very reasons. And which is why, if you look after that, we have what we call the technical support framework in my time. Put down on the 16th of March this year. That actually looks at the specific roles, maintenance, you know, performance improvement, removing outdated functions, system hosting. This is more specific in terms of what the county's roles are and what the ministry's roles are. It is signed by our county secretary, our chief officer, Smart Nairobi, who is here. He is now chief officer revenue, and the ICT authority. So we want to
Governor, if you look at that document, there are pages that are missing, at least from my bundle. The even numbered pages are not here.
It must be a printing issue. Just
that is correct, because from page 3 of 9 we go to page 5 of 9, and then page 7 of 9.
Apologies, that must be a printing error.
We need to get this complete document, because this is extremely useful for our work.
Yes.
Why should the Treasury be talking of developing another system when the Ministry of ICT already has a system that is supporting the biggest county in the country?
You know,
and it's not for you to answer, as you had said at the beginning, but we really want to understand what the Ministry of ICT is offering Nairobi to guide us, whether this then ought to be the solution that could be standardized and rolled out to the other county governments.
In fact, Governor, for the few pages that are here are worrying me even more. You have been very categorical that Nairobi Pay is owned by the Nairobi County government. If you go to page 3 of that agreement, page 3 of 9, there is Article 1.3, which says headed purpose. And it starts by saying the Nairobi Pay system is owned by the national government of Kenya.
yes, Chair, as I explained, at the point when I gave that